the next generation of therapeutics, what should people start expecting? Assuming the funding comes through, what will the fall look like? What will be available versus what's available now?
The virus feels evolutionary pressure to escape our immunity that is generated both by infections and by vaccinations. We also have waning immunity. We know that over time, immunity protection against the virus wanes naturally. That combination means that as we get to the fall, we are all going to have a lot more vulnerability to a virus that has a lot more immune escape than it even does today, and certainly than it did 6 months ago.
Not a lot often gets done in Washington without a deadline. So what are the deadlines coming up? When can you no longer place an order for the next shipment of Paxlovid or the next generation of vaccines?
It's going to take these manufacturers about 2 to 3 months to make them. If we want vaccines for the fall, by September, they're going to have to start making those vaccines in June into early July. That's the timeline for manufacturing. As you might imagine, lots of countries want those vaccines, not just the United States. So countries are already coming to the manufacturers, starting to negotiate. We want to make sure that we don't lose our place in line. So, if we had the resources, we'd be there having those conversations today. The window really is closing on us if we want to be in the front of the line.
Is that something that you're convinced that can make it survive Congress, that there is support in Congress to provide that development aid funding to get those vaccines and arms overseas?
All of these variants were first identified outside of the United States. If the goal is to protect the American people, we have got to make sure the world is vaccinated. I mean, there's just no domestic-only approach here. That is a point that I think most members of Congress understand. And the funding request from Congress is relatively modest in comparison to the impact it will have. That $5 billion will have an enormous impact on making sure that we get vaccines into arms, we protect people globally, we reduce the risk of variants, both emerging and spreading, and in that way we also end up really protecting the American people.
I wanted to ask you about what's happening in China right now. They have the zero COVID policy and have taken some fairly draconian lockdowns there. What's your assessment of their strategy? Is it something that is sustainable, and is it one that you would advise them to continue given all of the geopolitical aftershocks of that sort of policy?
Maintaining a zero COVID policy is very, very, very difficult. I don't think it makes sense. And so our strategy in this country has been very different, right? Which is to protect people, get people vaccinated, get people boosted, make sure we have therapeutics around. To me, that is a much more sustainable long-term management strategy. And that's why that's what we're doing here in the United States. I think China's going to find it hard to continue this for the long haul. We will see.
Thank you for joining the AP interview. We really appreciate it.